Social media algorithms exploit this, curating feeds that reinforce our biases. The result is a feedback loop that feels like truth, but is often just comfort. Then there's the Dunning-Kruger effect, where people with limited knowledge overestimate their competence. Ever wonder why the loudest voices on X are often the least informed? A 2023 meta-analysis found that overconfidence peaks when knowledge is shallow, but belief is strong. This isn't just arrogance, it's a cognitive trap that makes us resistant to correction. Now, add AI to the mix. Deepfakes generated by algorithms can fabricate convincing realities. Fake videos, fake voices, fake news. A 2025 report from the World Association for Media Literacy estimated that 40% of online content could be AI generated by 2027, blurring the line between truth and fiction. Bonhoeffer warned of propaganda. We're facing something worse. Systems that exploit the very architecture of human cognition with surgical precision. Fighting back, the cost of costly grace. Bonhoeffer called the antidote to stupidity costly grace. The courage to think independently even when it's painful, unpopular, or dangerous. In his time, that meant resisting Nazi ideology, a choice that cost him his life. On April 9, 1945, just weeks before Germany's surrender, Bonhoeffer was executed by hanging. His final words, reported by a fellow prisoner, were, "This is the end. For me, the beginning of life." His sacrifice wasn't just about political resistance, it was about defending the possibility of human thought. Today, costly grace means fighting a different kind of battle, not against a single regime, but against systems that profit from our mental laziness. It's about resisting the pull of algorithms, echo chambers, and emotional shortcuts. It's about choosing curiosity over certainty, evidence over emotion, and truth over comfort. Here's how you can start right now. Practice intellectual friction. Each week, spend 30 minutes reading arguments that challenge your beliefs. Not to torture yourself, but to test whether your convictions hold up. If they do, you'll believe them more confidently. If they don't, you'll learn something vital. Embrace productive ignorance. When you're certain about something, ask, what evidence would change my mind? If you can't answer, that's a warning sign. Certainty without openness is the first step towards stupidity. Slow down your sharing. Before posting or sharing online, take 60 seconds to verify the information from an independent source. This small pause can disrupt the algorithmic cycle that thrives on your reactions. Say, "I don't know." Admitting ignorance in a world that rewards confident falsehoods is revolutionary. Practice it. It's not weakness, it's strength. But individual effort isn't enough. We need systemic change to make thinking easier. Social media platforms should disclose their algorithmic biases, showing us how they shape what we see. Governments and schools should fund media literacy campaigns that teach people to evaluate sources critically. Online platforms should reward nuance over outrage, perhaps by amplifying posts that cite evidence or acknowledge complexity. Most crucially, economic policies must reduce the stress that makes us vulnerable to mental shortcuts. When people aren't worried about basic needs, they have the bandwidth to think clearly. The stakes in 2025, Bonhoeffer's warning, is more urgent today than ever. We're not just dealing with human manipulation. We're facing AI-driven systems that know our minds better than we do. Every click, every like, every angry retweet is data used to refine the algorithms that keep us trapped in echo chambers. The COVID-19 era showed us how even experts can fall prey to misinformation under pressure. The 2024 U.S. election cycle saw X flooded with false narratives that spread faster than fact checks. And with AI deepfakes on the rise, the line between reality and fiction is eroding. The scariest part? We're all vulnerable. Intelligence doesn't protect you. Education doesn't immunize you. The moment you think you're above stupidity, you've already started to succumb. Bonhoeffer's challenge isn't about being the smartest person in the room. It's about being the one who keeps thinking when everyone else has stopped. The radical act of thinking. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Intellectual surrender feels like freedom. Thinking is hard. Holding contradictory ideas, admitting you're wrong, questioning your tribe, it's all painful. But Bonhoeffer argued that this discomfort is the price of being human. When we stop thinking independently, we become, in his words, puppets whose strings are pulled by whatever force happens to be strongest. So, here's my challenge to you. This week, pick one belief you hold dear. It could be political, social, or personal. Spend 30 minutes researching the strongest arguments against it. Not to undermine yourself, but to strengthen your mind. Milgram's experiment revealed a terrifying truth. Under pressure, even good people can abandon their ability to think critically. But it's not just authority that bends our minds. In the 1950s, Solomon Asch's conformity experiments showed that 75% of people would agree with a group's obviously wrong answer. Say that two lines of different lengths were the same, just to fit in. This wasn't about intelligence, it was about the social cost of dissent. When everyone around you believes something, questioning it feels like betrayal. Fast forward to today, and these dynamics are supercharged. A 2018 MIT study found that false information spread 6 times faster than truth on social media. Not because people are inherently dishonest, but because lies are often emotionally charged, tapping into our brain's preference for simplicity and certainty. Our minds, shaped by millions of years of evolution, prioritize speed over accuracy. In a world of saber-toothed tigers, hesitation could mean death. But in 2025, that same wiring makes us vulnerable to clickbait, outrage, and echo chambers. Add to this the work of Leon Festinger, who in the 1950s introduced the concept of cognitive dissonance. When we encounter information that contradicts our beliefs, our brains fight to reject it, creating mental discomfort we'll do anything to avoid. This isn't just a quirk, it's a feature of human cognition, amplified by stress, overwhelm, and economic insecurity. When you're juggling 2 jobs, drowning in debt, or scrolling through an endless feed of notifications, your brain defaults to shortcuts. It's not laziness, it's survival. Now, layer on the modern twist, algorithms. Social media platforms like X don't just show you content, they curate it to keep you engaged. Every click, every pause, every angry emoji is data. It used to feed you more of what keeps you hooked. A 2023 study estimated that 60% of social media content is algorithmically tailored to exploit emotional triggers. The result? Echo chambers that feel like communities, reinforcing beliefs you might never have questioned otherwise. Bonhoeffer saw this in Nazi propaganda. We see it in our feeds. the systems that shape stupidity. Bonhoeffer's genius was recognizing that stupidity isn't just a personal failing, it's a systemic one. Our world is designed to make thinking hard. Consider the economics. Social media companies make billions when you react emotionally, not when you analyze critically. News outlets thrive on outrage, not nuance. Politicians win votes with slogans, not policy papers. The average person, stretched thin by work, bills, and constant information bombardment, doesn't have the bandwidth to fact-check every claim or question every narrative. Economists call this rational ignorance. It's not that people are dumb, it's that the cost of being informed, time, energy, mental clarity, is often higher than the perceived benefit. Why spend hours researching a complex issue when a catchy headline feels like enough? This individual choice makes sense, but collectively, it's catastrophic. Bonhoeffer saw this in Nazi Germany. Educated people didn't lack intelligence, they lacked the conditions to use it. Today, those conditions are under siege. Economic insecurity, stagnant wages, rising healthcare costs, housing crises creates mental overload, making us more susceptible to simple narratives. A 2024 study from Stanford found that chronic stress reduces cognitive flexibility, making people more likely to cling to familiar beliefs even when they're wrong. Add social media's dopamine-driven feedback loops, and you've got a recipe for intellectual surrender. History is littered with examples. The Salem witch trials weren't led by evil masterminds, but by devout community members who believed they were protecting their town. The Red Scare of the 1950s wasn't fueled by malice, but by patriotic Americans convinced they were saving democracy. During COVID-19, doctors and engineers, people trained in evidence-based thinking, shared debunked theories about vaccines. These weren't failures of intellect, they were failures of intellectual independence under pressure. The neuroscience of our downfall, Bonhoeffer, didn't have access to modern neuroscience, but his insights align chillingly with what we now know about the brain. Our minds are wired for cognitive shortcuts, known as heuristics, that helped our ancestors survive. We trust familiar sources, seek information that confirms our beliefs, and prioritize emotional certainty over complex truth. These were advantages in a world of immediate threats, but they're liabilities in an age of information overload. Take confirmation bias, the tendency to favor information that supports what we already believe. A 2022 study in Nature found that people are 20% more likely to share content that aligns with their worldview, even if they suspect it's false. Why? Because it feels good. Dopamine rewards us for certainty, while doubt triggers discomfort. The insidious power of stupidity. Why our minds are under siege. Imagine this: a brilliant scientist armed with multiple degrees begins spreading dangerous misinformation that undermines decades of research. A compassionate teacher, beloved by students, starts endorsing ideologies that harm the very community they serve. A devoted parent, driven by love, makes choices that endanger their own children. These aren't villains twirling mustaches in some cartoonish plot. They're intelligent, well-meaning people like you and me, who've fallen into a trap so subtle, so pervasive, it's reshaping the fabric of our society. This isn't about evil, it's about something far more dangerous: the power of stupidity. What if stupidity isn't just the absence of intelligence, but a force so insidious it can turn brilliant minds into instruments of destruction. What if the greatest threat to civilization isn't malevolent masterminds, but ordinary people who've simply stopped thinking? In 1943, from a Nazi prison cell, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, a German pastor and resistance fighter, penned a chilling warning. Against stupidity, we are defenseless. His words weren't abstract philosophy. They were a desperate plea from a man watching his world collapse under the weight of intellectual surrender. Today, as algorithms manipulate our attention and systems profit from our mental shortcuts, his warning feels more urgent than ever. This isn't just a history lesson or a psychological curiosity. It's a wake-up call. Stupidity isn't something that happens to other people. It's a trap we're all vulnerable to, no matter how smart we think we are. So let's dive into Bonhoeffer's unsettling theory, explore the science that proves it, and confront the uncomfortable truth. In a world designed to exploit our cognitive weaknesses, choosing to think independently is nothing short of a radical act. Are you ready to question what you think you know? Let's find out. The man who saw stupidity's power. Dietrich Bonhoeffer wasn't your typical intellectual. Born in 1906 into a family of German elites, his father was a renowned psychiatrist and neurologist. He grew up surrounded by the promise of reason and education. As a Lutheran pastor and theologian, Bonhoeffer believed in the power of rational discourse to solve humanity's problems. But the rise of Nazi Germany shattered that faith. He watched, horrified, as educated, cultured, and even religious Germans, professors, doctors, clergy, embraced policies and leaders that contradicted everything they claimed to stand for. From his prison cell in 1943, awaiting execution for his role in a plot to assassinate Hitler, Bonhoeffer wrote his most haunting observation. Against stupidity, we are defenseless. Neither protests nor the use of force accomplish anything here. Reasons fall on deaf ears. This wasn't a lament about low IQ or lack of schooling. Bonhoeffer was describing functional stupidity, a willful abandonment of critical thinking that turns intelligent people into puppets of slogans, catchphrases, and groupthink. What made Bonhoeffer's insight so revolutionary? He saw stupidity not as an individual failing, but as a sociological phenomenon, amplified by systems that make independent thought costly. He noted that stupid people aren't independent. They're possessed by ideas that aren't their own. In conversation with him, one virtually feels that one is dealing not at all with him as a person, but with slogans, catchwords, and the like that have taken possession of him. He wrote, "Sound familiar? Scroll through any social media feed today and you'll see it. People parroting talking points, not because they've thought them through, but because they've been swept up in a current stronger than their own reasoning." Bonhoeffer's theory wasn't just a product of his time. It was a warning for ours. He saw how stupidity serves power structures, making people believe they're doing good while they enable harm. Unlike evil, which creates unease and resistance, stupidity is immune to correction because it feels righteous. And in 2025, with algorithms curating our realities and information overload pushing us to mental exhaustion, the conditions for functional stupidity are more perfect than ever. The science of surrender, Bonhoeffer's observations were eerily prescient, but modern science has given us the tools to understand why stupidity is so powerful. Let's start with a chilling experiment from 1961. At Yale University, psychologist Stanley Milgram asked ordinary volunteers to administer what they believed were increasingly painful electric shocks to another person, under the direction of an authority figure. Despite hearing screams of agony, 65% of participants delivered shocks they thought could be lethal. These weren't sadists or sociopaths. They were regular people, like your neighbor or your coworker, who temporarily surrendered their moral judgment to authority.